This is Kotaro, a 2-year-old baby brother of Ryu. They lost their parents in a tragic plane crash, and today they are walking into a meeting that could change their lives forever. The chairwoman of a school, a woman who also lost her own children on that exact same plane, wants to adopt them. The moment they step into her office, she looks them over and asks why they are so late. She has been waiting since morning. Before Ryu can apologize, Kotaro looks up at her, completely unbothered, and calls her Shaggy. Ryu's jaw drops. He slaps a hand over his brother's mouth and bows his head in frantic apology, but the chairwoman just stares at them for a long moment. Then she speaks. In exchange for a roof over their heads, they will work for her, part-time babysitters in her school daycare. Ryu agrees without hesitation. From the outside, it sounds like a cruel bargain, trading 2 orphan boys for cheap labor. But for Ryu, this is salvation. They are escorted down the hall by a teacher named Seikawa who explains the situation as they walk. The daycare is called the Babysitter Club. It was opened by the chairwoman's late son, but no one ever wanted to join, so it never officially formed. Ryu listens, then says quietly, with the kind of steady determination that does not match his age, that as the first official member, he will do everything he can for it. Seikawa wipes his eyes, genuinely moved, and wishes him luck before leaving. Ryu opens the daycare room door. The noise inside dies instantly. 5 small children freeze mid-play, eyes wide, staring at the strangers who just walked in. Then all at once, they scramble backward and hide behind the legs of a young man passed out on the floor. One of the kids tugs hard on his ear and he jerks awake, groaning. This is Uzeda Yoshihito, the only caretaker here, a graduate of the school's current class. He rubs his neck, looks at Ryu and Kotaro, and deadpans that they must be the new babysitters. Then he adds casually that he is hurt that only 2 of them showed up. The kids peek out from behind him, whispering, asking if they can play with the new people. Uzeda tells them to introduce themselves first, and all 5 shout their names at once in a chaotic jumble. He sighs and orders them into a naming train. One by one, they step forward. Kirin, Taka, Takuma, whose twin brother is Kazuma. And finally, the youngest, Midori. Ryu kneels and places Kotaro down beside him, introducing his baby brother. Taka stares at Kotaro for a long, uncomfortable second, then points and shouts that he is a monster. The other kids immediately scream and charge, tiny fists and plastic swords flying. Ryu tries to stop them, shouting that he will be the monster for them, take it out on him instead. They switch targets instantly, swarming him, jabbing him with toy swords and pulling his cheeks. Kotaro watches the chaos, then tries to wade in and save his brother. But every time he gets close, a wave of small bodies shoves him back. He stumbles, confused, not understanding why they will not stop. Ryu looks at him through the chaos and tells him gently to go play somewhere else. He will be fine. Kotaro retreats to the bookshelf, pulls out a picture book, and sits down. He watches from across the room as his brother disappears under a pile of children. Uzeda walks over, crouches next to him, and asks if he wants his big brother back. Kotaro nods. Uzeda asks if he wants Uzeda to read him that book. Kotaro shakes his head and keeps staring at Ryu. Uzeda watches him for a moment, then understands. He is feeling lonely. He pats Kotaro's head and says in this room his brother will not even notice he is there unless he calls him. Uzeda calls out to Ryu, telling him his shift is over and he is leaving. He hands a diapered Midori to Ryu and asks if he can handle the kids on his own. Ryu nods. Uzeda glances back as he walks out the door, thinking to himself that he would have stayed if Ryu had just asked. Left alone with the 5 kids, Ryu tries his best. He changes Midori's diaper. Taka immediately climbs on his back and starts pulling his ears. Kirin runs up proudly announcing she has made food, then grabs Midori and announces she will be mama and Midori will be the baby. Before Ryu can stop her, the twins barrel straight through her carefully arranged meal. Kazuma trips and starts to cry. Ryu scoops him up just in time and Takuma pats his brother's arm, saying pain, pain, fly away, and Kazuma sniffles and stops. Kirin stares at the ruined food, devastated. Ryu crouches down and tries his best to cheer her up. Then Midori starts crying. Ryu juggles Kazuma and Midori at the same time. Taka attacks him again, climbing up his front. Through all of it, Ryu keeps glancing at Kotaro. His baby brother is still sitting quietly by the bookshelf, book in his lap, watching. Ryu mouths to him, asking if he is all right. Kotaro nods, but Taka tugs Ryu's attention away again and Kotaro's small face falls. In a room full of noise and chaos, he has never felt more alone. The mothers arrive to pick up their kids. Kirin's mother asks who Ryu is. He introduces himself and the mothers introduce themselves in turn. Midori's mother is Yukari. The twins' mother is Yae, who is also Kirin's mother. Ryu gestures to his brother still sitting quietly by the shelf and says that is his baby brother Kotaro. The mothers say hello to him, but Kotaro does not look up from his book. That evening, just as Ryu is stepping back inside the daycare room, Taka's older brother appears at the doorway. He calls for Taka and tells him it is time to go, then turns and looks Ryu up and down. He introduces himself as Hayato, the same grade as Ryu. So Ryu is the transfer student joining their class. Ryu nods, thinking Hayato looks pretty intimidating but seems like a decent guy. Taka refuses to leave, yelling that he is not going home, he wants to play with Ryu more. Hayato smacks the back of his head. Taka bursts into tears and starts hitting Hayato's legs, calling him a meanie. Hayato, completely unfazed, points at Kotaro still sitting quietly in the corner and tells Ryu that maybe he should look after his own brother since the little guy looks lonely over there by himself. Ryu crosses the room and kneels in front of Kotaro, asking if he wants him to read that book for him. Kotaro looks up, but before he can answer, his small body sways. He collapses forward onto Ryu's lap, breathing fast and shallow. Ryu's heart drops. He scoops him up and bolts out the door, chasing after Hayato. He catches up to him in the street and begs him to show him the way to the nearest hospital. Hayato doesn't hesitate. He drops Taka off at his mother's office and runs alongside Ryu through the snow. The whole way, Ryu's mind races. Why did he leave his baby brother all alone? How did he not notice something was wrong? At the hospital, Kotaro is lying on a bed, small and pale. The doctor tells Ryu that the fever is likely caused by stress from a change in environment. After some rest, he will be fine. Ryu exhales, relief flooding through him. A nurse comes out later and tells him he can take Kotaro home once he wakes up. Ryu steps outside into the cold hospital corridor. He pulls out his phone to inform their parents, then stops. His thumb hovers over the screen, his breath catches, tears fall onto the glass. His parents are not coming back. Kotaro is all he has now, and he almost lost him too because he was too busy taking care of everyone else's children. He sits down on a bench and finally lets himself cry. A hand touches his shoulder. It is the chairwoman. She looks down at him and says, "So you are finally crying." She remembers standing at the funeral, watching everyone weep and noticing only 3 people had dry eyes: herself, Ryu, and little Kotaro, who was too young to understand what had happened. She tells him that the ones they have lost will not come back, but that does not mean they are alone in this world. More tears spill down Ryu's face, but something in his chest loosens just a little. He goes back inside. The nurse brings out a crying Kotaro, who immediately reaches his arms out. Ryu holds him tight and calls him an idiot for not calling for him sooner. He wonders if Kotaro has realized their parents are never coming back. That night, the chairwoman comes in to tuck their blankets around them. After she leaves, Ryu lies in the dark, staring at the ceiling, and finally accepts that she was right. They are not alone. The next morning, the chairwoman asks Seikawa where these messy flowers came from. He explains that Ryu and Kotaro picked them for her. He reaches to throw them away, but she snatches them back, blushing, and says she changed her mind. Then it is time for introductions in class. Ryu walks to the front of the room, stuttering. He glances at Hayato, who gives him the tiniest nod, and suddenly the words come. He introduces himself clearly, and his classmates applaud politely. Back at the daycare, Taka tugs on Kotaro's sleeve and asks if he wants to read his favorite book with him. Kotaro nods. The other kids gather around, eyes shining with excitement. Later, Ryu reads aloud and Taka announces he is the Red Ranger. Takuma insists he is also the Red Ranger, and so does his brother. Kirin declares she is the Pink Ranger, and Uzeda falls asleep in the corner holding Midori. The next morning, Ryu wakes up to find Kotaro asleep on his chest. He smiles sleepily and hugs him. Then the door slams open. The chairwoman storms in, ordering them to get out of bed and prepare for school. Seikawa is right behind her, holding up breakfast and lunch boxes he already prepared. As she lectures them about punctuality, Kotaro reaches up and grabs a fistful of her hair. He looks her dead in the eye and calls her Shaggy again. She warns him coldly that if he calls her that again, she will give him the same haircut. Seikawa imagines it and whispers that it would actually be cute. She then tosses Ryu a neatly folded school uniform. Since he will be a student at her academy, he needs to look the part. Ryu bows deeply, overwhelmed by the gesture. At the daycare that morning, as Kotaro takes off his shoes at the entrance, Uzeda stares at him in disbelief. He mutters to himself that he never thought the old cheapskate would actually buy a uniform for a kid. He tells Kotaro he is heading to class and will be back at lunch, leaving him in the daycare. Ryu walks toward his classroom and immediately notices every student in the hallway turning to stare at him. Then Hayato appears and tells him it is because he brought kids along with him. Ryu spins around. Taka is standing there grinning, and behind him, Kotaro is holding onto Ryu's pant leg, refusing to let go. The other kids wave and ask Ryu to play, embarrassing him further. Hayato glares and raises a fist to scare them off. Taka bursts into tears, calls his brother a poopy head, and bolts straight into a fierce-looking girl walking down the hall. The girl freezes. She asks why there are children in the school hallway. The kids burst into tears and cling to Ryu's legs. He bows in apology and ushers them all back to the daycare. This girl is Inamada, the top-ranked student in the school. Other students watch and whisper that she is so mean, but she ignores them and walks away. Back at the daycare, Uzeda is asleep again. Hayato smacks him awake. Ryu notices Kotaro sitting quietly, looking a little sad after what just happened. He pats his head gently. Inamada appears at the door holding Taka's forgotten lunchbox, dropped off by his mother, who is a teacher at the school. The kids spot her and instantly tremble in fear. Uzeda suddenly clutches his stomach and cries out in pain, asking Hayato to take him to the nurse's office. He leaves Ryu and Inamada in charge of the kids. Ryu tells her he can manage on his own and she can return to class. She insists on staying because Uzeda gave her the responsibility. The kids, however, all huddle behind Ryu like scared little animals, avoiding her completely. Inamada tentatively offers to hold sleeping Midori. Her face turns bright red and she loudly announces she just wants to help. Her shout wakes Midori, who starts crying. Ryu rushes to console her. Taka pokes Inamada with a toy sword. All the kids suddenly line up like little soldiers, shouting villain and preparing to attack her. Inamada, startled, demands to know who they are calling villain. Then Ryu notices her eyes are welling up. He quickly tells the kids to apologize for their bad behavior. She shakes her head, saying she does not want their forced apologies. She looks at Ryu and says she feels sorry for him, having to deal with disobedient kids like these. Ryu smiles gently and says they are not a burden at all. Inamada snaps. She smacks him hard with a pillow and shouts at him not to give her that smile. She starts throwing stuffed animals at him one after another, crying that kids like him and no one likes her. Studying is the only thing she is good at. Kirin walks up and gently places her hands on Inamada's lap. She looks up and says softly, "Don't cry." All the children stare at her with big, teary eyes. Inamada's composure completely breaks. She kneels down and hugs them all. The kids apologize to her. Soon, she is sleeping peacefully on the floor surrounded by children. Later, Kotaro is staring sadly at the little tiger printed on his sweater. Ryu asks why he is looking at it. Kirin answers for him, saying he is sad because Taka made fun of him, telling everyone it was dumb to wear a tiger shirt when he has never even seen a real tiger. Taka insists he was just telling the truth. Hayato smacks the back of his head and scolds him for insulting Kotaro. Taka bursts into tears and yells that Hayato always does this to him, that Hayato just hates him. Hayato bluntly replies that he does not particularly like or hate him. Taka cries even harder and runs to Uzeda, screaming that he hates his brother. Hayato sighs, picks Taka up, and carries him home. Later, Ryu suggests to Kotaro that they go to the zoo together this weekend. The other kids immediately beg to come too. Uzeda volunteers to tag along, saying he can be paid for working weekends. At dinner, Ryu asks the chairwoman for permission to go on a zoo trip. She agrees but refuses to pay Uzeda, adding that the mothers are also coming. Ryu invites her, but she scoffs that the zoo is a stinky place. On the day of the trip, Seikawa hands Ryu a massive, beautifully arranged lunchbox and some money from the chairwoman for the trip. At the zoo, Ryu tries to pay Uzeda with the money. Uzeda refuses but admits he plans to take photos of the kids and sell them to the fathers who could not come. Hayato appears in his basketball clothes and drops Taka off because he has practice. The kids marvel at the elephant, excited beyond words. Uzeda snaps photo after photo. Then they reach the tiger enclosure. The tiger lets out a massive roar through the glass. The kids shriek and scramble backward, clinging to Uzeda and their mothers in terror. Kotaro stands perfectly still, eyes locked on the tiger, completely unfazed. Ryu looks at his baby brother's face and sees not bravery but utter frozen fear. He picks Kotaro up, realizing that if they were out in the wild, Kotaro would be the first one eaten. They move on to the tiger cubs and the mood lightens. At lunch, Ryu goes to the lockers. He glances at Kotaro and sees him staring at something. He follows his gaze and sees a happy family walking together, the parents holding their child's hands. The image hits him like a punch. He quickly looks away. Uzeda calls him over and he joins the group. The mothers compliment Seikawa's adorable animal-shaped lunch boxes. After eating, Uzeda takes a picture of the kids holding rabbits. Kotaro points at a nearby sheep and calls it Shaggy, just like the chairwoman. Ryu puts Kotaro next to an old lady sitting on a bench and Uzeda snaps a photo. Then Taka pulls Kotaro over to show him a hawk, bragging that his name also means hawk. Ryu tells him that the falcon is called Hayabusa, which contains Hayato's name too. Taka immediately denies that Hayato is his brother and drags Kotaro away. They visit the souvenir shop. The kids pick up toys and beg. Kotaro stares at a keychain that looks exactly like the chairwoman. Ryu takes him to pay for it, leaving Taka with Uzeda. Uzeda suggests Taka buy a souvenir for his brother, but Taka blushes and insists he does not need one. Then he spots someone who looks like Hayato and runs after him. Uzeda is distracted picking souvenirs. As it gets dark, Taka is still chasing the stranger. The man turns to check his watch and Taka realizes it is not his brother. Scared and lost, he trips and falls. He starts crying for his older brother. Hayato appears almost instantly, scoops him up, calls him an idiot, and tells him a real man does not cry just because he is lost. Ryu catches up and exhales in relief. Hayato hits Taka on the head and tells him to apologize to Ryu for the trouble. Later, as everyone says goodbye, Ryu thanks Hayato for coming. Hayato mutters that his mother hit him for leaving Taka alone. Kotaro and Taka are fast asleep. Taka mumbles in his sleep, "I love you, brother." Hayato says quietly, "Idiot, I do not hate you either." Ryu smiles and teases him, saying even though he acts cold, he clearly loves his brother a lot. The next day, Kotaro sits quietly reading a book while the other kids play. Uzeda glances at the calendar and suddenly lights up. It is Valentine's Day. He calls the kids over and holds out his hands. The kids stare blankly. Kotaro places his hand on Uzeda's. He grins and corrects himself, saying no, he wants the Valentine gifts the kids' mother sent. The kids all exclaim they have nothing and Uzeda deflates. Meanwhile, Valentine's gossip spreads through the girls in class. They corner Yuki, a shy girl, asking if she likes someone. She gets flustered and nervously laughs. A boy asks Ryu if he got any chocolate. When Ryu says no, Yuki smiles in secret relief because she has a crush on him. Then a girl offers Hayato chocolate. He flatly refuses, saying he does not like it. The boys cry out in outrage. The main event is Yogi, a brilliant student showered with chocolates by girls. This infuriates Inamada because gift-giving is banned on school grounds. The girls snap back, asking what her problem is. Yogi smoothly intervenes, saying he will graciously accept the offerings after class. He turns to Inamada and casually asks if she was helping at the daycare yesterday, mentioning he is interested in joining the Babysitter Club. Inamada tells him to ask the club himself and storms off. Yogi's quiet friend Nezu watches everything. Inamada walks alone, replaying the girl's words in her head. She's a stick in the mud wherever she goes. She is terrified to go back to the daycare, afraid the kids will end up hating her too. Meanwhile, Yogi walks into the daycare room and announces he wants to join the Babysitter Club. Ryu is thrilled to have someone interested. He gives Yogi a quick tour and introduces all the children. Yogi works the room like a natural politician. He tells Kirin her pigtails are adorable. She beams and shows them off proudly. He tells Taka he is just as cool as his older brother. Taka's chest puffs out with pride. He compliments Midori's big eyes, she giggles. He tells the twins they look like the best of friends. Ryu is amazed at how quickly Yogi won everyone over. Later in the library, Inamata overhears two boys saying Yogi is always glaring at the kids. Panicked, she runs straight to the daycare to save them. Meanwhile, Yogi is smiling at Kotaro. His smile makes Ryu uneasy. Yogi says Kotaro looks round and plump, reaching out to touch him. Inamata kicks the door open and yells at Yogi to stop. She is shocked to see blood on the floor but realizes Yogi just has a nosebleed from poking Kotaro's cheeks. Yogi's friend Nezu steps into the doorway and openly calls Yogi a pervert. Ryu immediately pulls the kids away from Yogi. Yogi denies it, claiming the nosebleed is from eating too much chocolate. Nezu points out he did not see him eat any. Nezu drags Yogi away by the collar. Before leaving, Yogi asks if he can still visit occasionally to poke the kids' cheeks. Uzeda pokes Midori's cheek and agrees that it is kind of fun. The kids, now addicted to the concept of chocolate, demand some from Inamata. She reminds them it is against school rules. They start crying. She caves instantly, promising chocolate tomorrow. They jump with joy. Ryu and Inamata walk home together as the day ends. He tells her to wait and runs into a store. He returns and Kotaro hands her a small box of chocolates. Ryu says it is perfectly fine to give chocolates off campus. Inamata mutters she's just a stick in the mud. Ryu smiles and tells her he actually likes that about her. He waves goodbye and walks away. Inamata turns bright red. Yuki, hiding behind a nearby wall, watches them and wonders nervously if they are in a relationship. Yogi is meanwhile buying a huge pile of chocolates for the kids and tells Nezu he can already picture Kotaro's cheeks stuffed with chocolate. His nose starts bleeding immediately. At home that night, Seikawa offers homemade chocolates to Ryu and Kotaro. Kotaro reaches for one and Seikawa helps him. After tasting it, Kotaro holds a piece up to Ryu. Ryu eats it and thanks him. Kotaro smiles warmly. Meanwhile, Inamata is agonizing over which chocolates to buy for the daycare kids. Next morning during PE class, the boys are shivering in the freezing cold. Ryu asks Hayato how he manages to stand still. Hayato admits he is freezing. A classmate jokes if he is a cyborg. Then Uzeda wheels up in a cart carrying all the kids. The kids beg to be let out. The moment they are released, they sprint straight to Ryu and dogpile him, using him as a space heater. The other boys look on in envy, reaching out creepily, calling the kids heat packs and fighting over who gets to hold them. Nearby, a mysterious man watches the kids. Ryu has to physically stop two students from snatching Kirin, who clings to Uzeda. Taka runs to Hayato, begging for rescue. A boy catches Kazuma, who bursts into tears. Ryu spots Takuma crawling toward the bushes. The stranger steps out directly into Takuma's path and grabs him. Ryu hands Kotaro to a nearby boy and sprints to save Takuma, shouting at the stranger to release him. Hayato whips off his shoe and hurls it like a missile. It hits the man square in the head. He drops Takuma and collapses. Uzeda compliments Hayato's insane accuracy. Ryu asks Takuma if he knows this person. Takuma's eyes light up and he happily announces it is his and Kazuma's father. Back at the daycare, Kyusuke apologizes for the commotion. Ryu asks why he was lurking in the bushes looking so suspicious. Uzeda explains that Kyusuke is actually a famous actor recently seen in a toothbrush commercial. Kyusuke looks down, ashamed. He wanted to spend a rare day off with his kids but did not want to cause a scene if recognized. Ryu and Hayato stare blankly, having no idea who he is. Kyusuke cringes, realizing he completely overestimated his own fame. He says he is so embarrassed and starts crying, explaining this is his first day off in 6 months. He was worried his twins would not even recognize him anymore. Ryu suggests he spend the day with them right here in the daycare. Kyusuke agrees gratefully. Ryu calls the twins over and hands Kazuma to his father. Kazuma immediately bursts into terrified tears. Kyusuke panics, assuming Kazuma hates him. Ryu stops him from leaving, explaining that Kazuma is just scared of unfamiliar people. Kyusuke is deeply moved. Takuma tells his dad he is a crybaby. Kyusuke plays with Takuma, but Kazuma cries every time. Even when playing Ring Around the Rosie with Midori or pulling the kids in a little wagon cart, Kazuma panics. Uzeda whispers that he did not know Kazuma disliked his father this much. Kyusuke sits defeated in a corner, then goes to his sons to say goodbye. He tells them to have fun and he will wait for them at home. As he slowly walks out, he bumps into a female student. She recognizes him immediately and screams. Other girls swarm around the actor, demanding autographs and pictures. Suddenly, Takuma and Kazuma are held aloft by Ryu and Hayato. They shout for their papa to come back. Kyusuke bursts into happy tears, trying to push through the crowd of girls. A teacher appears, blowing a whistle and flashing a picture of the chairwoman. The girls instantly scatter back to class. The teacher is actually Kyusuke's wife. She apologizes and explains that Uzeda told her what happened. She says she has been showing the twins their father's movies, and in his most recent one, he played a terrifying kidnapper. That is exactly why Kazuma is terrified of him. She adds with a small smile that he was very cool as the villain. Takuma and Kazuma run up and ask if he will play with them now. Kyusuke hugs them tightly, crying tears of joy. Both kids look incredibly happy with their father. Kotaro watches them silently, taking in the scene of a reunited family. The next morning starts with beautiful cherry blossoms blooming. It is Ryu's first day of high school after graduating middle school. He heads to the bulletin board to post his Babysitter Club recruitment poster, but the entire board is already plastered with flyers from other clubs. He retreats to the daycare room and is immediately dogpiled by the kids, who tackle him to the floor. The recruitment poster lands perfectly on Kotaro's head. Kotaro stands completely still, making no effort to remove it. Uzeda simply reads the flyer off Kotaro's head. Ryu sighs and asks him to at least take it off before reading it. Uzeda suggests they walk around the school and check out the other clubs. The twins happily agree. Taka wants to visit his brother's club. Kirin is bouncing with excitement. The kids hold hands and form a little parade down the hallway, singing a song and dancing while making fart noises. It is hilarious, but Kotaro keeps missing the rhythm. Ryu is mortified as everyone in the hallway turns to stare. Kirin eagerly throws open the drama club door. She screams in terror and the other kids panic too, except Takuma. Standing there in full zombie makeup is Kirin's mother. She runs the drama club. She asks them if they do not recognize their own mother, explaining it is the power of makeup. Ryu apologizes and tries to usher them away. As Kirin's mom talks to him, Kotaro tugs his pants and points down the hall. The other kids have already fled. Ryu apologizes again and runs after them. They find Uzeda in the hallway, his face now also painted in terrifying zombie makeup. The twins run into their mother's arms, hugging her. She asks what is going on. Ryu explains they are exploring the other clubs. Kirin suddenly smells something sweet and all the kids dash toward the kitchen. The twins' mother leaves too. Ryu follows the kids along with Kotaro, but he stops suddenly, staring at an ant on the floor. He points at it. Uzeda and Midori crouch down to watch it too. Meanwhile, the kids burst into the cooking room before the cookies are ready. Inamada, who is in the cooking club, tells the kids they are from the babysitting club. Ryu rushes in, asking if anyone has seen the kids. The kids run to him happily. Inamada scolds him for not watching the kids carefully and letting them run all over the school. She immediately realizes she scared them and blushes, apologizing for raising her voice. One of the girls says it is clear she really cares about kids. Ryu apologizes and tries to usher the kids out. Taka stubbornly refuses to leave until he gets sweets. Ryu has to forcefully drag him away. To calm the crying Taka down, Ryu says they will visit the sports club where his brother plays baseball. They go outside. A student comments that Ryu is basically stuck being a babysitter forever. Taka eagerly watches the practice, his eyes sparkling when his brother glances at him. Hayato immediately looks away. Taka yells in frustration, calling him mean. Hayato walks over and smacks him. Taka cries even louder. Hayato tells Ryu that their team is terrible. A baseball player yells, "I heard that." Ryu feels a sudden pang of sadness watching his peers having the kind of fun he is being denied. Kotaro finds more ants on the ground. When he tries to get his brother's attention, he notices the sad look on Ryu's face. Even Uzeda notices. The kids ask Ryu where they are going next. He says he needs to find a spot to put up his poster. He asks his little brother to come with him. Kotaro shakes his head. He acts cool, but he is hurt, walking off alone. Ryu leaves to pin the poster in a forgotten corner of the bulletin board, then sulks about his brother not wanting to come with him. Suddenly, Hayato appears with Kotaro by his side. Hayato holds out an application form and says he wants to join the Babysitter Club too. He explains that Kotaro noticed Ryu was feeling depressed and pulled Hayato over because he thought he needed more friends. Ryu is amazed by how well his little brother understands him. The other kids come running, holding the cookies they got from the cooking club, offering them to Ryu to cheer him up. He is deeply moved. With club day over, the boys settle in. Uzeda makes them matching aprons. Inamada occasionally brings cookies for the kids. Hayato comments the cookies could break a tooth, and she angrily tells him not to eat them then. The next morning, Ryu opens his eyes feeling incredibly heavy. Kotaro is fast asleep on his chest. He rubs his eyes as the chairwoman suddenly bursts into the room, scolding him for staying in bed. As he tries to get out of bed, he slips and falls flat on his face. He struggles to get up but keeps slipping on the floor. Seikawa cheerfully congratulates Ryu on his voice changing. The chairwoman instantly smacks him. He apologizes, saying it was just a joke. She takes Kotaro away, warning that if he catches Ryu's cold, it will be double the trouble. Kotaro stands at the doorway and whimpers. She tells him to come help her make medicine for Ryu. At the kitchen counter, she aggressively cuts a lemon in half. Kotaro mumbles under his breath, "Demon lady." She tells him to squeeze the lemon into a small cup so she can make honey lemon. Kotaro sits on the floor struggling with the lemon. The chairwoman asks if he wants help. He stubbornly refuses. Eventually, he manages to squeeze a single tiny drop into the cup. He smiles proudly and holds it up to show her. She tells him to squeeze more. He keeps working at it. She quietly finds a lemon juicer in the drawer but lets him keep trying on his own. When he finishes, he stands up, accidentally knocking the cup over and spilling the juice everywhere. She calmly hands him the other half of the lemon and tells him to try again. She wipes up the spill, noting to herself that Kotaro is incredibly determined. Later, she brings Ryu some rice gruel. Seikawa reports his fever is a little better. That night, Ryu drifts into a fever dream. He sees his parents going on another trip, and this time they are taking Kotaro with them. Ryu begs them not to take his little brother. He wakes up with tears on his face. Kotaro is alive and right there, wiping the tears from Ryu's face, but the lemon juice on his little hand stings Ryu's eyes. The chairwoman appears and tells him Kotaro's hands are covered in lemon juice. She hands him the cup of honey lemon tea that Kotaro made for him. As Ryu drinks it, he silently thanks God for not taking his baby brother away. Kotaro smiles brightly as Ryu pats his head. The chairwoman picks Kotaro up and tells him he has to leave so Ryu can rest. Kotaro looks confused and upset. Ryu is worried Kotaro might catch his cold. Later, Kotaro sits under a chair and pouts stubbornly. Seikawa tries to lure him out with ice cream, but it does not work. The boy is genuinely upset. The next morning, Midori's mother leaves her with Ryu and waves goodbye as she heads to work. Ryu suggests to Kotaro that they read a storybook until the other kids arrive. Before that, he puts Midori down to change her diaper but realizes he has completely run out. As he opens the cabinet to grab wipes, Midori crawls over to the door. Just as a student opens it, he is hit by the overwhelming smell. He looks down and sees Midori pulling on his pant leg. He falls to the ground in theatrical despair, crying out for someone to do something. Ryu watches in shock. Later, they sit down to talk. The student complains bitterly about the smell and asks if this is some kind of poop club. Kotaro holds a Cinderella picture book as they converse. The student calls Midori a poop factory and Kotaro a space cadet. Ryu defends Kotaro, pointing out he is looking after a little girl named Midori. The student asks if Kotaro is a girl named Midori because he is interested in seeing his future daughter's face. Ryu is completely baffled and points out he is still a student. The guy smiles and says he is senior to him, telling Ryu to call him Inui-senpai. Ryu points out Midori's mother is already married. Inui just smiles mysteriously and says that does not matter in love. He walks away satisfied. Later, Uzeda waves his hand in front of Ryu's face, snapping him out of a daze. Kirin tells him he was sleeping with his eyes open. Poor Kotaro stands there holding the Cinderella book, waiting for Ryu to read it. Ryu apologizes and tells him he will read it later. Ryu asks Uzeda about Midori's father. Uzeda tells him he is away on a dig overseas. That means Midori's mother is not a widow or divorced. Ryu is horrified, jumping to the conclusion that she might be cheating on her husband. Uzeda teases him about whether he is into older women. Ryu vehemently denies it. Later, in the classroom, he tells Hayato about the bizarre encounter. Hayato bluntly tells him it is their choice, so he should stay out of other people's romantic messes. Class begins, but Ryu is lost in thought. He has never actually been in love before. He stares at Yuki, trying to see if he feels anything, but he does not. She blushes when she notices him staring. In the hallway, he keeps pondering the nature of love until an Amada appears. He asks her blunt opinion on cheating. She immediately says cheaters deserve severe punishment. He then asks if she has ever had a crush. She gets upset, saying she sees herself as a dull person who has never experienced love. Ryu returns to the daycare to find the children gleefully sticking snot all over Inui while Kotaro watches quietly. Ryu calls the kids over and hands them tissues to blow their noses. He picks up Midori and tells the kids it is not nice to pick on the weak. Inui walks up to Ryu and says he just found out the poop factory is Midori. He bites Ryu's finger in frustration. The kids also start calling him weak. Ryu argues that it is wrong to pursue someone who already has a husband and child. Inui reveals the devastating truth. Midori's husband is dead. She told him he was far away because she could not bring herself to say the word dead. Inui says he wants to support her. Suddenly, Midori's mother appears to pick her daughter up. Inui is bright red as he walks up to her and holds her hands. The children start calling him boiled octopus. He tries to speak, but Midori begins crying loudly. Her mother picks her up, pats her back, and softly assures her that daddy is coming home soon. Inui is stunned. He asks about her faraway husband. She explains he is actually returning from a dig in Turkey. She then asks what Inui was about to say. He blushes furiously and claims he forgot. He offers to babysit Midori so she can go on dates with her husband. She thanks him for his kindness. Inui sulks in the corner as the children attack him mercilessly with toy swords. He angrily confronts Uzeda for knowing the truth all along. Uzeda laughs, saying he thought it was too funny not to play along. Ryu denies Inui looked like an idiot, insisting he actually looked really cool in front of her. Inui jokes that he must have the order mixed up, that love and marriage come before kids. Ryu looks over at Kotaro, who is still patiently holding the Cinderella book. He apologizes to him and reads the picture book to the children. As he does, he imagines Midori and her mother joyfully reuniting with her father. Later, the kids decide to play a game. Ryu Dragon King has taken over the Earth in service of Demon Queen Midori. The Power Rangers are here to save the day. Taka is the Red Ranger, Kotaro is the Blue Ranger, and the twins are both Yellow Rangers. Kirin, however, is not paying attention. She is sitting off to the side, drawing intently. Taka gets upset. Kirin announces she does not want to play silly games anymore because she wants to study to become a witch. Everyone is shocked. Ryu is horrified that she is turning into an Amada so soon, but figures it is fine because she wants to study magic. Taka, the ringleader, might have gone along with this if Hayato had not casually mentioned that boys cannot be witches. Immediately, conflict erupts. Taka and Kirin argue passionately about whether heroes or witches are real. Ryu refuses to let Hayato shatter their innocent dreams by telling them neither exist, but it is too late. Kotaro tries to play peacemaker and gets shoved for his effort. The kids start physically fighting. Taka returns the next day with photographic evidence of himself standing next to the Red Ranger, proving heroes exist. He points at Kirin and demands her evidence for witches. Kirin clutches her book of witches and yells that she has evidence and is going to prove it by flying. Outside, with a determined face, she tries to fly on a broom. Uzeda mutters that it is clearly not going to happen. Taka mocks her, saying he told her witches do not exist and tells her to come play. Kirin stubbornly refuses, saying she will not give up until she flies. Ryu is extremely worried for her safety. Uzeda tells Ryu he should just go back to class and that Kirin will eventually give up. Ryu refuses to leave her alone. He tells the problem to Hayato, who suggests they just tell her the truth that witches do not exist. Ryu argues it is not right to shatter a child's innocent dreams. As they are talking, Inamada appears and scolds them for blocking the restroom doorway. She asks what is going on. Hayato explains Kirin's problem. She says she can help and tells them to meet her at lunchtime. Later, she brings books filled with historical evidence of witches. Ryu looks at the terrifying imagery and says they absolutely cannot show this dark history to children. Realizing her mistake, she apologizes and storms off, slamming the door. Yuki, passing by, wonders what the relationship between Inamada and Ryu really is. Ryu thinks Inamada is a bit strange but genuinely kind. His thoughts turn to the chairwoman, who reminds him of a classic witch. He imagines he's asking her to pretend to be a witch for the kids, but in his head she just scolds him to study. Meanwhile, Uzeda asks Kirin to come back inside, but she yells at him not to get in her way because she is about to fly. Uzeda thinks it is fine for her to stay as long as she does not jump off anything high. Kotaro pulls Uzeda's pants and holds up Kirin's book about witches. Uzeda decides to read it to him. The twins run over to listen as well. Kirin looks up and spots a high ledge she could jump off to try and fly. Ryu walks toward the daycare holding magic trick books he planned to show the kids in support of Kirin's magic. He sees her about to jump off the ledge and drops his books in horror. He sprints and manages to break her fall just in time. She sobs uncontrollably, her dream of flying completely broken. Ryu tries to comfort her, reflecting that he should have just told her the truth that witches only exist in storybooks, just as Hayato had said. Suddenly, the chairwoman appears and asks why Kirin is crying. Kirin sniffles and explains she cannot fly. The chairwoman looks at her seriously and says, "Of course you cannot, you need 100 years of practice." Kirin's eyes widen as she asks if the chairwoman is able to fly on a broom. The chairwoman gives a mysterious smile and says she will leave that up to Kirin's imagination. She walks away. The kids are amazed. Inside, Taka tells Kirin they can play witches too. Kirin and the kids smile happily. Ryu admits to himself that for a split second he actually believed the chairwoman was a real witch. In the next scene, Nezu is sitting quietly with his many siblings in their modest house. Suddenly, they hear a younger brother, Kichai, yelling at their father that he is leaving. Kichai runs out of the house. Meanwhile, Ryu is outside hanging up laundry. Kotaro is staring at a long trail of ants on the ground. He starts following them but suddenly stops at a specific spot. Kotaro runs back to Ryu, grabs his pants and starts tugging him along. Ryu tells him he will trip if he keeps pulling on his pants like that. As they reach the spot, Ryu sees Kichai stuck in a thorny bush. Ryu unconsciously calls him Nezu because he looks so much like his older brother. Kotaro calls him a mouse. Kichai struggles to free himself. Ryu holds out a hand to help him, but the brat angrily slaps it away, yelling that he does not need help. This completely shakes Kotaro's small world. Ryu gently pats his brother, assuring him he is not hurt. Ryu asks Kichai if he is Nezu's brother. Kichai nods. Ryu explains that his brother and he are in the same school. He asks Kichai if something happened at home, but the boy stays stubbornly silent. Ryu goes back to hanging laundry, telling him that if he wants to talk, he can just call him over. He asks Kotaro to stay there and keep Kichai company. Ryu decides to call Nezu but realizes he does not have his number. Kotaro is watching Kichai when the boy suddenly starts to panic. He yells for Kotaro to run away as hands reach out toward them. It is Yogi. He grabs Kotaro's cheeks and squishes them happily. Ryu and Inamada appear from the bushes just as Yogi suffers a violent nosebleed. Inamada furiously warns Yogi that if he does not stop touching Kotaro, she will call the police. Yogi teases her that if she wants a turn to squish him, she will have to wait in line, enraging her further. Ryu explains that he called Yogi because he was the only one he had the number for. He is surprised to see Inamada there. Yogi explains that Nezu had to work, so he came instead, and Inamada just happened to bump into him, so he invited her along. It turns out Nezu's family is incredibly poor and has 8 kids. Yogi enthusiastically praises Nezu for working incredibly hard to make money for his family while also excelling in school. The kids are amazed. Yogi then starts ruffling Kichai's hair aggressively, saying he is so cute. Kichai yells at him to leave him alone. Inamada loses her patience and starts scolding Kichai, calling him a spoiled brat. She points out that unlike his hardworking older brother, he runs away from home and causes trouble for everyone. He starts to cry and admits he wishes he were rich so he could get video games. Inamada asks if he left home just over a video game, but Ryu suspects there is a deeper, more painful reason. Suddenly, another brother, Tsukichi, pops out and argues that kids absolutely have the right to have things that are important to them. Tsukichi glares at Yogi and calls him a pervert, demanding to know if he did anything to his brother. Yogi claims he just tousled Kichai's hair. Tsukichi tells him not to touch him again. Tsukichi then explains that games might not matter to adults, but to Kichai they mean everything. He's the only one in his class without it, and his best friend keeps pressuring him to get one, even though they know his family is poor. Kichai continues to cry, saying he loves his family, but he hates being poor. Yogi recalls a similar situation from his own elementary school days. He had offered to let Nezu borrow his game, but Nezu refused and said he would make his own video game if he wanted one. He told Yogi that no one is going to buy it for him just because he is poor. It was the first time Yogi thought that someone was incredibly cool. Kichai agrees wholeheartedly, saying his brother is really cool. He asks Ryu to help pull him out of the bush. They both fall onto the grass. Ryu pats him, asking if he is okay, and little Kotaro pats him too. Yogi pulls out Tsukichi and tries to play with him but gets promptly kicked. Both brothers then turn to Inamada and promise they will try to be as good as Nezu. Just then, the school bell rings. It is Nezu arriving to apologize for his brother's behavior. He hands Ryu and Inamada a box of sweets as a peace offering. Inamada is confused about why she is included. Kichai apologizes to his big brother for causing trouble. Nezu forgives him, saying they both learned something today. Nezu pulls out the exact video game Kichai wanted. Tsukichi asks in awe if he made it himself. Nezu glares at Yogi and admits he did not make it himself. He offered to take over some night shifts for a colleague who ended up selling the game to him cheap. He adds that he does not know what that idiot Yogi told them and kicks Yogi's leg, whispering that half of what he said earlier was complete bluff. Nezu tells Kichai to share the game with Tsukichi and pats him, telling him to go have fun with his friends. Ryu thanks Inamada for her help today, making her blush deeply. The next day, Uzeda is playing with the kids while talking with Ryu. Ryu explains he has a chemistry assignment to finish during lunch break, so he cannot come to the daycare. The kids wave goodbye to him. He pats Kotaro and leaves for class. During the break, Uzeda notices Ryu forgot to take his lunchbox. He thinks about eating it himself, but Kotaro pulls his pants and holds out his hands. Uzeda realizes Kotaro wants to take his brother's lunch to him. The other kids also want to go. Uzeda tells them to eat their lunch first. The kids eagerly start eating. Once they are distracted, Uzeda hands the lunchbox to Kotaro and tells him to deliver it. He attaches a name tag to Kotaro so that if he gets lost, he can ask for help. Kotaro nods and slowly walks out of the daycare. Uzeda waves at him nervously. Uzeda spots Inui outside the school and gets an idea, clenching his fist excitedly. Midori mimics his fist pump. Suddenly, a photograph appears right in front of Inui's face. He blushes. It is Midori's mother. He grabs the photo and realizes it was just bait. The kids call him dumb. Meanwhile, Kotaro walks down the hallway. Several students stare and whisper about who this little kid is. Two girls run off to report him to a teacher, but a boy stops them, pointing out that Kotaro has a name tag and is clearly on his first errand. Kotaro stops walking because so many people are staring at him. Students offer to help him, but he stubbornly declines, saying he will go by himself. The students admire his sheer determination and wish him good luck before walking away. Inui, watching from the sidelines, is upset that the students did not help. He wonders how he ended up following a kid on an errand. Uzeda promised him the photograph of Midori's mother in return. Inui watches as Kotaro slowly takes his first steps with his tiny legs down the long corridor. Meanwhile, Ryu realizes he forgot his lunch and tells Hayato. Yuki sweetly offers her lunch to Ryu, explaining she is on a diet. He says dieting is not good for health. The boys step in and offer him some of their lunches, completely ruining the romantic moment. Hayato sarcastically says it is nice to have such caring classmates. Back at the daycare, all the kids are sleeping peacefully. Uzeda wants to tell Ryu that Kotaro is coming, but assumes Ryu's phone is off because he is studious. He lies down to take a nap. Meanwhile, Inui watches as Kotaro slowly finishes climbing halfway up the stairs. As Kotaro turns a corner, a passing student accidentally kicks him in the face, sending his lunchbox flying. Just when it looks like all is lost and the food is about to spill, Inui, wearing a paper bag over his head, dives in and catches the lunchbox perfectly. He sets it right, hands it back to Kotaro, and turns to leave. Kotaro stops him and says, "Thank you, Mask Man." Inui blushes deeply. Kotaro continues his journey. Inui decides to stay and walks alongside him up the stairs, gently guiding other students aside to clear the path for the little boy. Ryu finally finishes his assignment. Suddenly, Kotaro arrives, the lunchbox clutched tightly to his chest. Ryu is shocked and walks over to him, asking if he brought this all the way here by himself. Kotaro nods proudly. A boy tells Ryu he cannot possibly eat any more after all the food they gave him. Hayato immediately shoves a piece of bread into Ryu's mouth to prevent Kotaro from hearing. Ryu lies with a mouth full of bread, saying thank you, Kotaro. He was really feeling hungry. He holds his brother and says they will eat together. The boys are deeply moved by this sacrifice. Yuki's friend whispers that Ryu's real rival is his little brother. Yuki blushes. Ryu opens the lunchbox and sees the contents are completely messed up from the journey. He feeds Kotaro some rice and they eat lunch together. Kotaro has successfully completed his first solo errand. Inui is also deeply touched, happy to see the brothers' love for each other. A senior named Seki calls out, handing Inui a handkerchief. Inui freaks out because Seki appeared completely out of nowhere. The next day, the girls in class corner Yuki, asking her what she likes about Ryu. She turns bright red and tells them to be quiet or he might hear. The boys listen with jealousy. The girls tell her he is not around to hear. Yuki finally confesses her feelings for Ryu. One girl says he has such a likable personality, both kind and good-looking. Another remembers him picking up her eraser when she dropped it. Then a girl says Hayato is also incredibly attractive. Another agrees, excitedly adding that he is hot. A third girl adds that he is a little scary. Another argues that is exactly why he is hot and that he also helps Q babysit, so he is secretly nice. Yuki despairs when she realizes how popular Ryu is, but the girls assure her they do not intend to be her rivals. Yuki blushes and tells them they do not have to hold back on her account. The girls then say her main competition is his baby brother. Even if she dated him, she would never be his first priority. Then a girl asks if Ryu is friendly with Inamada because maybe he likes her. Meanwhile, Inamada is walking past and hears them. Another comments that Inamada seems unromantic and is always just studying. Just then, they spot Inamada glaring at them. Ryu also appears in the hallway. Inamada gets so flustered that she angrily scolds the girls to close the door if they want to gossip. She storms off and the boys call her scary while Ryu looks shocked. He then realizes he still has not taken off his daycare apron. Hayato calls him absent-minded and points out his butt is completely covered in colorful stickers. Ryu turns red and asks why Hayato did not tell him earlier. The girls say he is so cute, while the boys are completely baffled by the girls' ranking system. Back in the daycare, the kids are busy putting stickers all over the sleeping Uzeda. Inamata regrets yelling at the girls and accepts she is unromantic, but it happened because she got flustered. It happens every time Ryu is around, which is exactly why she cannot visit the children. She recalls Ryu complimenting her on Valentine's Day and her face turns completely red. Suddenly, she hears a voice say, "Your face is red." She spins around and instinctively denies it. Kirin is the one standing there crying after getting yelled at. Inamata asks what they are doing there. Kirin explains they came to play with her. Inamata turns red as she tries to deny this, saying she cannot come because he is there but stops herself. Kirin asks if she is talking about Uzeda or Hayato. Kirin panics as she wonders if Inamata hates Ryu, which shocks Kotaro. Inamata denies this, so Kirin asks if she likes Ryu, which she also denies. Kirin concludes Inamata hates Ryu and cheers up a sad Kotaro, saying she has a plan to show her Ryu's good side. She holds his hand and runs, asking Inamata to follow them. Inamata squats awkwardly beside the kids near Ryu's classroom. Kirin tells Kotaro to show off Ryu's best points. Kotaro nods. He opens the classroom door, grabbing everyone's attention. He walks straight to Ryu and holds out his arms. Ryu picks him up and the girls in class are deeply touched by the sight. Kirin shows Inamata that Ryu is very caring. Inamata agrees he is kind but comments he is a bit overindulgent. Kirin says she gets it. Inamata likes strict men. She runs into the classroom and tells Ryu to hit her or she will be a bad girl. But Hayato immediately smacks her. She cries in shock into Ryu's arms, completely thrown off that Hayato hit her. Ryu comforts her and tells Hayato to listen to her before hitting her next time. Hayato argues that he did listen, which is exactly why he hit her. Kirin tells Ryu he needs to do it himself so Inamata will make up with him. Inamata walks in saying enough, it is all a misunderstanding, she does not hate Ryu. Kirin asks if she likes him. Inamata blushes furiously and yells she does not before angrily leaving. Ryu calls after Inamata. He hands Kirin over to Hayato and runs after her. Yuki watches this entire scene in absolute shock. He grabs Inamata's wrist, surprising everyone in the hallway. He smiles and tells her there is a sticker on her skirt. It is a little boar sticker. Ryu says the kids put stickers on him too and he felt very embarrassed. Kirin proudly announces she put that specific sticker on Inamata. His classmates wonder if Ryu is a complete airhead. Inamata walks away, recalling Kirin's direct question about liking Ryu. She tells herself firmly that if it is one or the other, she definitely hates him. But she is blushing a deep, undeniable red. Kirin tells Ryu she knows he is a good person, so he does not have to be sad. Then Uzeda asks what about him. She replies that he is a bad person. The next morning, while Kotaro helps his brother clean, Kyusuke arrives at the daycare with Takuma. Takuma snatches Kyusuke's glasses and puts them on. Ryu asks where Kazuma is. Takuma explains that Kazuma has a bad cold. Back at home, Kazuma is curled up in bed, calling weakly for Takuma. His mother sits beside him, comforting him. She tells him he needs to rest, but first he has to take some sweet medicine. Kazuma reluctantly takes it, and his mother applauds him for being brave. Ryu says to Kyusuke that the twins must be feeling lonely today, but Takuma cheerfully points out Kotaro, who is trying on the sunglasses. Kyusuke suddenly starts crying, saying Takuma is putting on a brave smile to hide his loneliness. Ryu wonders if it is just his imagination. Takuma looks completely fine to him. Uzeda pops up and bets Ryu 100 yen that Takuma is doing just fine. He asks Takuma directly if he is feeling lonely without Kazuma. Takuma smiles just a little and says he is okay. At home, Kazuma looks a little scared. Takuma then tells everyone he promised his mom he will have lots of fun so Kazuma will get well soon. Kyusuke is deeply touched by how brave his child is. Uzeda says he wins the bet and demands his 100 yen. Kyusuke gives him a 500 yen prepaid card instead. The greedy Uzeda asks for his autograph too, thinking he can sell it for a fortune. Kyusuke is flattered to give it. Kazuma asks for one too. While Takuma happily draws on Kotaro's face, Kyusuke tells them that Takuma might start to feel lonely without Kazuma later. He kneels down to say goodbye to Takuma. Just then, Hayato enters with Taka. Takuma immediately gets distracted and runs to Hayato, grabbing Kotaro. Kyusuke tears up, realizing Takuma likes Hayato more. Ryu calls him over so Takuma can properly say goodbye to his father. The kids wave at him and Uzeda calls him shady behind his back. Afterwards, Takuma holds Kotaro's hand, which angers Taka. Taka pulls Kotaro to his other side. They both start aggressively pulling Kotaro between them. Ryu yells for them to stop, saying it is not a tug of war. Hayato smacks Taka, who cries out loudly, claiming he is Kotaro's best friend. Kirin suddenly asks where Kazuma is. Ryu explains he is at home with a cold. After hearing this, Taka walks up to Takuma and holds his hand, promising to beat that cold. Takuma happily says he will do that too, and the other kids join them. They run over to Uzeda and tackle him. Uzeda begs Ryu for help, but Ryu says he is sorry, he has to leave for class. Uzeda collapses to the floor in defeat and the kids call him weak. While walking to class, Ryu is worried about whether Takuma will truly be okay, even though he looks cheerful right now. Hayato thinks Kazuma might be struggling because he has a cold and his brother is not with him. Ryu agrees, imagining Kazuma is probably crying and calling for Takuma. He thinks about how different their personalities are. Kazuma is always teary while Takuma is always cheerful. Ryu thinks they must never want to be apart. As he thinks about the twins during class, Yuki wonders who he does not want to be apart from. Back at the daycare, while all the other kids are taking their afternoon nap, Takuma suddenly wakes up. He searches the space beside him and pulls off Taka's sock. As he holds Taka's sock, he remembers Kazuma. His eyes widen as he looks around the room for his brother. Taka's foot accidentally hits Kotaro, waking him up. Kotaro gets up and sees Takuma leaving the daycare room all by himself. Ryu rushes back to the daycare, highly concerned. He trips and falls just as he suddenly sees Kotaro running straight toward him. Kotaro hugs him tightly, then points in the exact direction Takuma went. At the school gate, two girls notice Takuma and call out to him. Ryu approaches and asks what he is doing there. Takuma asks him if Kazuma is better now. Ryu replies honestly that he does not know, but he is sure Kazuma is feeling a little better than before. Takuma looks down with profound sadness. Kotaro looks toward the gates just as Yukari arrives with Kazuma, explaining his fever has gone down so they came to pick up Takuma. Kazuma cries happily as he reaches out to his brother. Takuma falls back and starts crying too. Kazuma cries even more as their mother comforts Takuma, commending him for being so brave and explaining that Kazuma is feeling better because Takuma kept his promise. Uzeda comes out with the rest of the kids after they heard the crying. He notes this scene is the complete opposite of their usual dynamic. Takuma is crying and Kazuma is laughing. They wave to the twins, who are now holding hands tightly. Ryu smiles, believing the twins are better off with each other. Later, Kyusuke rushes to the daycare to pick up Takuma, but Uzeda tells him he has already left. The next day, Ryu finds a letter in his locker. Seikawa appears, asking if it is a love letter, and starts making a huge scene. Yuki's friend watches from afar and asks Yuki if she put it there, but Yuki denies it. Hayato takes the letter to check it out, but Ryu blushes and snatches it back, saying he will check it himself. As he is about to read it, Inamoto steps in and tells them not to block the hallway. He quickly hides the letter behind his back and apologizes. Uzeda wipes the letter off the floor and with dramatic flair begins reading it aloud for the entire hallway to hear. It is a heartfelt confession from a girl who says she loves Ryu more than a cat loves chasing a laser pointer. Yuki and Inamoto are both completely surprised by this. The letter mentions the girl will be waiting for him behind the school building. Ryu turns bright red, unsure how to respond to his very first love letter. He takes the letter and says he needs time to think. As he leaves, Hayato points out he is still wearing his indoor shoes, which he forgot to change during all this chaos. At the daycare, the kids notice Ryu's red face and say he is all red. Uzeda asks him if he has a cold, but Ryu lies that he just ran all the way there. His baby brother brings a blanket over and places it gently on his lap. He pats Kotaro and says do not worry, he does not have a cold. All day, Ryu cannot stop thinking about the confession. He drops the baby powder while changing Midori's diaper. He holds a picture book completely upside down and Kirin has to correct him. Hayato also reminds him he once again forgot to change his shoes. During dinner, Seikawa holds up a huge container of bright red rice and congratulates Ryu. Seeing the massive amount of rice, the chairwoman asks if there is a special reason to celebrate. Seikawa cheerfully explains that Ryu received his first love letter. Ryu panics and quickly denies it, confusing the chairwoman. He hastily changes the subject by complimenting the delicious-looking red rice while Kotaro looks completely confused. Later, while Kotaro is selecting a storybook, Ryu is still completely lost in thought about the love letter. Kotaro holds out a book but then notices Ryu looks flushed and distant. Suddenly, Ryu turns to Kotaro and asks if he selected a book. Kotaro hides the book and shakes his head. He approaches him and stretches his arm, wanting to go to bed without a story tonight. Ryu tucks him into bed and he slowly closes his eyes. The next morning, Ryu is on his way to school, still thinking about the confession. Kotaro looks at his brother and then spots an orange tree. He lets go of his distracted brother's hand and wanders into someone's yard. At the same time, Inamoto is on her way to school, convincing herself she left early just to study while denying any plans to spy on Ryu. Yuki is in a similar situation, having left early to find out what Ryu will say to the girl who confessed. They run into each other, and before they can say much, Ryu suddenly grabs Inamoto's hand. He is panting hard because he ran to catch up with her. He asks frantically if they have seen his little brother, Kotaro. He lost him because he got distracted. Inamoto says she has not seen him, so he runs down the street to search. Yuki runs after him and offers to help. As they cannot find Kotaro, Ryu begins to panic. Just then, he hears Hayato call his name. He turns around and sees Kotaro holding a round orange by Hayato's feet. Hayato explains that Kotaro had wandered into someone's yard to pick him an orange. Kotaro holds out the fruit and calls it a lemon, medicine for Ryu's cold. Ryu suddenly recalls how his baby brother squeezed a whole cup of lemon juice for him when he was sick. He realizes Kotaro has been caring for him as if he were sick because of his constant blushing. He gets incredibly emotional because his baby brother was so worried about him. He kneels down and holds Kotaro's hands tightly, shedding tears. Later, Ryu goes to apologize to the girl who wrote him the letter, rejecting her confession. She sadly accepts his decision and leaves. Hayato, who overheard the conversation, asks why he rejected her when he seemed interested. Ryu says simply that Kotaro is his absolute top priority right now. At the daycare, Uzeda corrects Kotaro, telling him it is an orange. Kotaro stubbornly says no, it is a lemon. Yuki and Inamoto, who are hiding behind the bushes to spy on Ryu, feel an immense wave of relief that he did not accept the confession. Yuki then shyly asks Inamoto if they can be friends and calls her Maria-chan. Inamoto blushes and tells her not to call her by her first name because it is embarrassing. In the next scene, Seikawa answers a ringing phone, but all he hears is heavy breathing on the other end. Hayato hits Taka, telling him to stop stalling and share the phone. Taka is upset it is not Ryu on the phone and begs Hayato to ask for Ryu and Kotaro. Hayato takes the phone and asks for Ryu. Ryu answers the phone as he holds Kotaro. Taka desperately calls out to his brother. Hayato ignores him and asks Ryu if they have free time, which Ryu confirms. Ryu checks with Kotaro to see if he wants to talk. Taka excitedly takes the phone, his nervousness evident as he eagerly awaits his turn. He invites Kotaro loudly to join him at the summer festival. They hear a bump on the other end as Kotaro accidentally hits his head on the phone. Ryu requests permission from the chairwoman to attend the festival, and she grants it with a warning about not being swindled by vendors. Seikawa presents them with yukatas for the festival. At the festival, Taka, dressed in a yukata, energetically waves his toy sword while waiting for Ryu and Kotaro. Hayato tells him to stop swinging his sword to avoid bothering others. Ryu calls out to Hayato, asking if he had been waiting long and apologizing. Hayato dismisses the concern and questions Ryu about the effort put into his outfit. Ryu explains that Seikawa and the chairwoman put thought into the outfits, making it impolite to decline. Taka grabs Kotaro's hand and runs toward the festival stalls, with Ryu cautioning about getting lost. Hayato considers disciplining Taka to avoid further problems. Kotaro becomes captivated by a cotton candy maker, eagerly observing the cotton candy spinning. Taka consumes his cotton candy immediately, while Kotaro insists on saving his despite Ryu warning that it will shrink. Taka spots a booth with various toys, including a hero's transformation belt, attached to strings in a lottery game. The booth attendant offers Taka and Kotaro a chance to win, but Ryu and Hayato promptly redirect them away from it. They decide to get something substantial to eat, with Taka objecting. They realize the strings in the lottery game are not connected to the toys, particularly the new and costly game system. Taka begins to cry and wave his cotton candy stick. Uzeda greets Ryu and Hayato from a goldfish booth. Ryu asks what he is doing here. Uzeda explains it is a part-time job from his neighbor. He then asks why Taka is crying. Taka says he wants to play that lottery game. Uzeda gives Taka and Kotaro goldfish scoopers to cheer them up, but asks for money, although he can give them a discount, making Hayato comment on his hard selling approach. Taka insists on pulling strings rather than scooping goldfish, and Hayato warns him to be quiet or be left with Uzeda, which startles Taka. Hayato then asks him about his sword. He looks towards Kotaro and then at Uzeda, who says, "Do not look at me, I did not take it." Ryu also says he does not have it, making him realize he lost it. He starts crying loudly, attracting the attention of people, so he gets whacked by his brother. Ryu comforts Taka as they attempt to find the lost sword. Hayato suggests that he and Kotaro enjoy the festival while he assists Taka in finding the sword. Ryu expresses his genuine willingness to help Taka as friends, but Hayato remains silent, prompting Ryu to question whether Hayato sees him the same way. Hayato implies that if Taka were not his brother, he would not spend time with him. Taka cries again, leading Ryu to defend his brother. As they were searching for the sword, Ryu sighs as they check the last stand. Taka continues to cry for his lost sword, and the cotton candy maker directs them to the Lost and Found booth, where you can retrieve items lost during the festival. At the Lost and Found booth, they find Yagi surrounded by many girls. He is in charge of managing this booth. Ryu informs Yagi about Taka's lost sword, and Yagi looks at Taka's tearful face, which causes his nose to bleed. This worries Ryu, but Yogi's friend Nezu reassures him not to worry, as it always happens to Yagi. He instructs them to check the box for the sword. They examine the toy swords, but Taka's sword is not there. He is so sad that his sword is lost. Hayato suggests that they have searched long enough and it is time to give up. Taka refuses to give up, so his brother tells him to search for it by himself. Ryu objects, saying he should not be so harsh, but Hayato tells him to shut up. He offers Taka the choice to search for the sword by himself or to join him in playing the lottery game. Hayato also reminds Taka to thank Ryu for helping in the search. Taka contemplates his lost sword and finally considers giving up. They decide to go and play the lottery game. Taka thinks about which string he should pull, and his brother tells him to pull one quickly, but Ryu advises to chill, just give him time to think. Suddenly, Kotaro impulsively pulls one of the strings and Taka's sword comes out with it. He is overjoyed to have his sword back. Hayato confronts the booth attendant, who apologizes for stealing Taka's sword and gives a game as an apology, which they offer to the old woman as a souvenir. And Kotaro is disappointed with his deflated cotton candy. The next day, they all go to the beach. Midori, Taka, and Takuma are fully enjoying themselves, while Kirin and Kazuma are crying and Kotaro has a cold expression on his face. Ryu is watching the kids. Just then, Uzeda appears and comments that they have cleanly split into Enjoy It and Beach Sucks factions. Ryu says he does not seem to have any intention of swimming. Uzeda replies he is here just to enjoy some swimsuit hotties and nap. He then asks about Hayato, and Ryu points in the direction of the water. Kirin's mom appears from behind, startling Ryu. Other moms also arrive and say he can go and enjoy swimming. They will look after the kids today. Shizuka tells them she asked Inamoto to come, hoping to give her a breather. She has not arrived yet. Just then, Inamoto appears and apologizes for being late. They all appear surprised that she is wearing her school swimsuit. Uzeda calls her a naughty girl for wearing her school swimsuit and Shizuka whacks him. Yukari tells her girls must look pretty and Yae agrees too, so Shizuka says let's buy a beach suit for her. Yukari says it is a thanks for making delicious sweets for the children. Inamoto tries to deny it but could not. Uzeda comments she cannot say no in such a situation as they see the moms quickly hurrying Inamoto to the swimsuit shop. Later, while the kids enjoy eating corn, Uzeda asks Ryu why he does not go and swim. He replies Kotaro is not used to the ocean yet. He thinks he will stay here with him. Uzeda says what is so scary about it. He puts Kazuma in the water to check, who immediately starts crying. Ryu carries a scared Kotaro into the water, thinking that the children are afraid of being swept away. He stays in the shallows to keep Kotaro safe and tries to show him that the ocean is not scary. Children look at them with shock. All of a sudden, a big wave crashes over him. Ryu ends up underwater, holding Kotaro above the water. Kotaro is scared even more. Back on the beach, Ryu coughs and tries to reassure Kotaro that the ocean is not scary. Uzeda comments he is not convincing at all, man. Kids tease Ryu for almost drowning, so Ryu suggests let's play in the sand instead and kids agree. Twins build a big sand mountain. Taka digs a hole and Uzeda complains about getting sand thrown at him. Kotaro also makes a sand pile. Ryu is happy that kids are having fun. However, waves crash on beach destroying their creation and Taka cries loudly. Moms bring some juice for kids. Takuma and Kazuma look happy to have it and Taka stops crying as he gets one. Kotaro looks at his glass while Taka drinks it fastly. Ryu is also offered one. He tells Kotaro let's drink it. Suddenly, Hayato appears startling them and Kotaro's glass falls. Hayato offers him seaweed as an apology. Shizuka smacks him asking what Kotaro would do with it. Ryu gives his drink to Kotaro. She then says Inamoto went and got changed. Do you want to say something? They all stare at her for a moment. She is wearing a pink floral bikini with side ponytail. Hayato simply says it is a swimsuit, causing Shizuka to sigh. Ryu says it is cute, especially the patterns, which confuses everyone, so he clarifies the floral pattern matches to Kirin's inner tube. Other mom says they might be embarrassed to compliment a girl at this age as Shizuka says my son is heartless. Yae says Inamoto seems happy as she smiles matching with Kirin. Just then, Ryu sees Kotaro on gravel and tells him that is not a place to sit. He takes him away from there and as he walks away, beach water touches his feet. Kotaro tries to be not scared of water. Ryu thinks Kotaro is rather cute when he is trying to be strong. He tells him let's go and collect seashells. As he takes Kotaro, moms warn him that it is hot, be careful, and Ryu soon realizes it is really hot while Kotaro finds a shell. Later, when Kotaro is asleep with other kids, moms tell Ryu to go and play in water. This is the best chance. Hayato says come on, let's get going. They enter the water and Ryu is relieved at the cool feeling. Hayato asks you can swim, right? Ryu asks what do you mean by that? He replies he thought maybe he could not swim because he seems to be avoiding the ocean. Ryu says he is not avoiding it, he just did not want to leave Kotaro alone. He remembers this is not Kotaro's first time at the ocean. He may not recall it, but as a baby, they brought him to the beach. That time mom and dad took him into the water, he was not scared at all. He wonders if he is scared now because Ryu is not enough to reassure him. Hayato smacks him making him go underwater. Ryu comes up and asks if Hayato hits Taka that hard, but he calls him stupid and says it was not even half as hard. He then explains Kotaro was not scared back then because he was just a baby who did not know anything. He tells Ryu not to say stupid things. Ryu admits back then Kotaro could not even stand. Yukari notices that Kotaro has woken up. He sits up and looks around for Ryu. She points at the ocean telling him his brother is in the water. He immediately runs towards the water. He stops where the waves are crashing onto the beach and looks at his brother. When he sees Ryu going underwater, he freezes in fear recalling Ryu held him above water when a wave crashed onto him. He steps into water despite his fear, but he cannot swim. Yukari quickly pulls him out. He cries and reaches out for Ryu. Ryu comes out of water and says he heard someone's crying. Hayato points there is commotion at beach. He looks over and sees Kotaro crying for him. Ryu quickly swims back to the shore. He takes Kotaro and asks him what is wrong. He says he is sorry he left him while he was napping. Yukari explains she thinks he got worried when he saw him dive under. Kotaro tried to walk into the water he was so afraid of just for him. While Kotaro is still clinging to his brother tightly, Yukari says it is nice that they two are so close. Ryu says sorry he worried him and hands him a shell. Remembering his father told him you could hear the ocean from a shell. He thinks Kotaro would not remember this, but to his surprise, Kotaro holds the shell to his ear to listen to the ocean. Ryu smiles and helps him hold the shell, correctly saying he had it upside down and hopes that next time Kotaro visits the beach, he will love the ocean. In the next scene, Taka looks upset. Ryu asks him what happened. He rushes into his arms and tries to explain, but he is sniffling and Ryu cannot understand him. Shizuka tells Ryu what happened, showing him a ball covered in scribbles. Kotaro says poop. She explains Taka drew poop on the autographed baseball that Hayato treasures. Ryu gasps thinking Hayato got very angry and hit Taka hard. Shizuka says it was not like that and recalls. Hayato stared at his ruined baseball while Taka teased him for not spending time with him. Expecting a hit, Taka covered his head, but Hayato walked past without a word and asked his mother for food, completely ignoring Taka. Afterwards, he continues ignoring Taka and left for school without taking Taka with him. Taka started crying and Shizuka asked what was wrong. Ryu comments Hayato must be really mad and Taka wails it is Hayato's fault, so he will not apologize. Shizuka tells Ryu to go and talk to Hayato or else he will keep ignoring Taka. He asks who is going to look after kids since Shizuka has supplementary classes to get going too and Uzeda is not here. Just then, the chairwoman opens the door and says she will look after the children. She demands that the two immediately get moving as she cannot stand the sound of a crying child echoing in the hallway. Shizuka and Ryu comply. As they leave, Kotaro calls the chairwoman Shaggy. Taka scares as she glares at him, but she kneels down helping him to blow his nose. Ryu goes to baseball club's practice and a club member warns him not to talk to Hayato. They see Hayato is in a bad mood, angrily swinging his bat. Ryu decides to talk to him and approaches him. He calls out to Hayato and asks if they can talk. Ryu tells him if he will not forgive Taka, he will go wailing the whole day. He then further says that Kotaro destroyed a lot of his stuff too. He understands the feeling of never wanting to talk to him again. He recalls the time when Kotaro scribbled all over his homework. Another time he destroyed his matchstick castle that took 2 weeks to build. He recently dropped his phone in the toilet which had emails from his mom and dad. Hayato pats him and he wipes his tears. He says since it was an accident he will just move on. Hayato says his situation with Taka is different. He does not care about the object itself, but Taka is malicious. He knows he is not sorry yet, and with a brat like him he guesses he has to just suck it up. Meanwhile, Chairwoman listens to Taka as he explains what happened and he sniffles while blaming Hayato for not playing with him. She asks him if he treasures anything and he eagerly shows his toy sword. She takes the sword and asks Seikawa to get a hammer to destroy it, which upsets Taka. She is about to destroy the sword with hammer, but Taka begs her to stop. But she did not destroy it and says that is what you did with your brother and gives back his sword asking if he truly did nothing wrong. Taka reflects on his actions. When Ryu returns, Chairwoman tells Seikawa that they should get going. After school, Ryu asks Taka if he would like to go to apologize to Hayato and to his surprise, he quietly nods. They arrive at baseball club's practice area where Taka hides behind Ryu. Hayato stares at him and turns to walk away. Taka sprints after him calling for him to wait, but he slips and falls. Hayato calls him an idiot and says if he does not hurry up, he will leave him. He immediately runs toward his brother. He cries out loudly and says sorry. Hayato walks with him and then pats his head. He apologizes for not spending time with him. Ryu feels happy on seeing the brothers uniting again while Kotaro holds his finger tightly. Morinamiya Academy is having a cultural festival today. The daycare room decided to set up a refreshment stand with babies taking part. Ryu's flyer warns guests that the kids are prone to spilling juice, which Uzeda thinks is bad for business. Kotaro attempts to carry the juice but slips on some juice on the floor and starts to tumble. Taka bumps into Kazuma who bumps into Takuma and everyone spills the juice. They all are lying on the floor wearing their cute vegetable costumes Uzeda made. He also made a giant corn cob for Ryu. As Ryu wears his costume, Uzeda tells that kids' fathers are also coming today. Kirin excitedly says her papa is coming too. Suddenly, Kirin's mom appears freaking out Ryu. He falls on the ground and says he is unable to move. Taka says he will move him but fails as he starts rolling. Kotaro lies down and get rolled with Ryu and Uzeda clicks their picture. Hayato appears and says why giant corn blocking the door and realizes it is Ryu. Afterwards, Kirin's mom tells she cannot attend daycare program because of some urgent work. Kirin tears up so she assures Kirin her father will be here for her. Yae then asks a favor from Ryu and others regarding her husband. Meanwhile, a man, likely Yae's husband, offers flowers to 2 girls and asks for directions to the daycare. Inui is upset because Midori's mom is not there, but a bearded man approaches him and asks to be taken to daycare. Twins' actor dad is hiding in the bushes trying to avoid his fangirls while finding his way to the daycare. Kirin's father opens the door and calls out to his daughter. He immediately starts taking pictures of Kirin, calling her incredibly cute in her carrot costume, and as Kirin smiles, she looks even cuter. Yae asks her husband, "You came so early, my dear," and he tells her he was so excited for this. He gives her bouquet and tries to kiss her in front of kids, but she stops him from doing so. His attention then shifts to babysitters. It turns out that Kirin's mom asked for a rather unusual favor. She needs boys to pretend to be girls because her husband is paranoid and thinks everyone is trying to marry their daughter. Uzeda is attempting an unconvincing high-pitched girl voice to sell the idea, but when Kirin's dad was about to shake hand, he sees through it right away. He gets angry and asks Yae why there are male babysitters, but she has already left. He realizes that the other kids are boys as well and takes offense. Midori bites his leg. Kirin points out Midori is not a boy. He picks up Midori and apologizes. He compliments her big round eyes and says if I were 30 years younger, I would ask for her hand in marriage. Ryu, Hayato, and Uzeda awkwardly watch him compliment Midori. He turns to the boys and demands to know their intentions toward Kirin. They all tell that they like Kirin and Kirin also says I like them all too. But Taka says I do not like you, Kirin, and she retaliates. Her dad angrily asks what kind of jerk would not like my cute daughter. He then says he does not want to leave my daughter in room full of beast men and plans to leave. Ryu steps in and tries to convince him, but as he is wearing a wig, he looks like a cute girl. Kirin's dad holds his hand and says if I were 15 years younger, I would ask for your hand. Ryu contemplates revealing his true gender, but before he can decide, Midori takes off his wig and he turns to leave saying males are unacceptable. Ryu asks Hayato to stop him, who glares at Kirin's father and tells him if you want to leave, you are leaving by yourself. Kirin's dad redirects his attention to Hayato, hitting on him, but it turns out Hayato is also a boy. Kirin tears up asking him to stay and watch her successfully carry the juice, and he cannot say no to his cute daughter. Just then Midori's dad appears and takes his daughter from Kirin's dad. They both introduce themselves to each other. Inamada goes up to Ryu and questions so he has lost Yukari to this wild-looking bearded man. While he is not looking, Uzeda puts Ryu's wig back on and he mistakenly thinks he is talking to a girl. Kirin and Uzeda arrive at the daycare center. Yukari asks Inamada if he has come to see the kids' refreshment stand, but he clarifies he was only showing her husband the way and then runs away. But outside he thinks back to the girl he saw and says she was cute. Kirin finally gets to present her juice, successfully carrying it without spilling, and her dad reflects on how fast she is growing up. He becomes emotional, worrying about her future marriage, that someday she will be taken away by some jerk. This leads to more tears in his eyes and other dads also start crying. And Ryu comments it is too early to think about marriage. Kirin says it is Kotaro's turn. Her dad furiously asks who is Kotaro. Ryu sits and watches Kotaro as his baby brother carries the juice to him. Ryu reflects on how fast Kotaro is growing. He spills a bit but manages to deliver the juice. Seikawa shows up and startles Ryu, praising Kotaro and explaining that Chairman cannot come because she has a visitor, which disappoints Kotaro. Seikawa says he noticed regret in her eyes, and Ryu envisions her scolding him for assuming her feelings. Kirin's father suggests to remember this day, let's take pictures, and Kirin comments Papa takes great pictures. Moms are spending time with their kids, so Kirin's dad says look this way everyone, I am taking picture. Taka is with Kotaro and says I am not going to look that way. Cute Tomato Twin says we are going to look that way. Midori cries out loudly and Kirin gives a cute smile. Kirin dad says here we go and takes a group photo. The next day Ryu is trying to calm down crying Taka who was whacked by his brother, and kids tremble in fear as Hayato threatens to hit those who do not listen like Taka. His mother appears and hits him for threatening kids, then she hits Uzeda for sleeping on job. Hayato asks her why are you here and she tells that she is here to invite the kids to watch chicks hatching from eggs in the science lab. Uzeda remembers that she is a science teacher. The children's eyes sparkle as they listen to Shizuka talk about the eggs. They rush towards the door to see the chicks. She says let me finish talking, they will hatch tomorrow. The kids are not only ones excited, Ryu wants the chicks to imprint on him and follow him around. Hayato asks why as the children already follow him. Ryu agrees while kids excitedly request to see the eggs, so they all go to the science room. Children watch at the eggs curiously. They then turn to Ryu and call him a liar as Kirin thinks that it is a refrigerator where eggs are kept. Ryu tries to explain that it is an incubator but kids do not want to listen. Ryu asks for Shizuka's help but she leaves for a class, so Hayato raises his fist and orders them to listen. They all get scared and go closer to Ryu, who explains that the incubator keeps eggs warm and they will see the chicks hatch tomorrow if they wait patiently. Uzeda comments staring at eggs can be boring but Kotaro could do it all day. Ryu notices his tiny forehead pressed against the incubator glass. He picks up Kotaro and says let us come tomorrow, while Uzeda finds kids dismantling a model of the body. Next day in early morning, Kotaro is dragging Ryu to the science lab. He points to the science room asking to see the chicks. Just then, Ryu hears Shizuka saying that students with a passion are always welcome to learn. They are just in time, chicks are about to hatch. Ryu and Kotaro eagerly watch the chicks hatching. Shizuka smiles when she sees that even Ryu is excited to see the chicks. She calls the two cute unlike her own sons who are currently asleep. After an hour, Shizuka is asleep. Ryu is nodding off but Kotaro remains pressed against the incubator. He sees that a chick has stuck its wing out. Ryu wakes up to see Kotaro is so concentrated on the chicks that his forehead is emitting steam. He is holding his laughter as he watches Kotaro struggle along with the chick. Chicks are finally out of their shells and Kotaro tells his brother. But as he looks back at the chick, it falls down and Shizuka explains it is resting after working hard to break out. Kotaro hugs his brother. This is a deeply emotional experience for him and Ryu reflects on his own feelings when his baby brother was born. He holds Kotaro and says let us go tell everyone. Later, chicks have imprinted on Kotaro and are now following him around. Kids are surprised to see chicks following him. Taka gets jealous saying it is not fair. Kotaro gets them all. He tries to grab one and chicks scatter. The kids chase them around. Ryu asks Uzeda to help him catch the chicks but one heads toward the window where a cat is lurking. They all gasp as the cat targets the chick. Cat pounces and to everyone's surprise, Kotaro shields the chick. Thankfully, Hayato grabs the cat before it reaches the chick, reminding them to close the window when releasing the chicks. Ryu pats Kotaro's head saying good boy you tried saving chick. And Kotaro smiles as he holds the chick. Lastly, Ryu followed by Kotaro followed by chicks. Today, Uzeda is at home sick and appears quite miserable when he calls Ryu. Taka constantly jumps asking to talk to him while Kotaro listens silently. Uzeda informs Ryu that he cannot come into the daycare and has asked Seikawa to fill in for him, who suddenly appears and startles Ryu. He tells him that he will try his best to handle the kids today. He can go to his class. To take care of Midori, Seikawa brought a book called Now That You Are a Mommy. Kotaro grabs his pant and expresses his support with grunts. Seikawa is deeply touched by the gesture. Shizuka tells Taka to behave properly with Seikawa, and Ryu tells Kotaro to be a good boy with him. Other kids arrive and excitedly say it is butler guy. Ryu straps Midori onto Seikawa. Kids run towards him and he greets them while Seikawa plays drum to entertain Midori. Ryu tells he is here today as Uzeda has a cold. Kirin is excited to spend time with him. Twins want to play with Seikawa. Taka says who wants stupid Uzeda around and he sneezes. Ryu says he needs to get to class, thanks for help. He then waves to kids before leaving and they wave him back saying see you later. Now kids are standing too far away and Seikawa considers how to create a safe and welcoming atmosphere for kids. Kotaro puts his hands on him to express his support. It is a heartwarming moment. Seikawa decides the best way to proceed is to bow and make an elaborate statement about needing everyone's support. Kids interpret this as if they are now in charge. Now he feels the kids are comfortable with him as they pull him saying they will teach him different games. Meanwhile, Uzeda is lying on his bed where he hopes the kids are not missing him too much, although he imagines them all crying without him. Kotaro holds the book Sad Panda. Uzeda barely gets any rest before receiving a call from Seikawa. The connection is bad, but he catches something about an emergency related to Midori before the line cuts. When he calls back, phone is out of service, leaving him worried about what might have happened. In a flashback of 10 minutes ago, Midori is crying as her diaper leaked onto Seikawa's back. He says they must change her diaper, so Kirin runs to get diapers and Taka goes to bring wipes. Seikawa thanks them but urges them not to run. Kirin bumps into Taka and the two fall over soaking diapers into water. They begin to tear up but Seikawa tells them not to panic and calls Uzeda for spare diapers as it is an emergency related to Midori. But Midori slaps his phone and it falls in water. Kirin starts to cry saying it is all Taka's fault. Taka cries out it is not my fault. Midori is also crying loudly and seeing everyone cry, twins also start to cry. Babysitter Club becomes crying club except Kotaro. Seikawa lays Midori down and takes charge. Adjusting his glasses and rolling up his sleeves, he holds a cloth up. Meanwhile, Ryu and his classmates are jogging during their gym period. Suddenly, a man collapses on the ground, shocking Ryu. Soon he realizes that it is Uzeda, who is still feeling unwell, but is desperate to learn about the emergency with Midori. Ryu and Hayato help him and take him to the daycare room. However, Midori is totally fine thanks to Seikawa's efforts in making her a cloth diaper and washing her soiled clothes. Uzeda is relieved by this. Taka and Kirin tell him that they are doing fine, he should go and take rest. Kotaro says drink lemon tea and Twin says USA get well soon. Uzeda gets emotional and Hayato says he is a little old to cry. Uzeda is now ready to leave but Midori grabs his pants and pulls it. Seikawa tells that Midori was most concerned about his absence. Just then Midori calls his name and he blushes. Ryu is surprised as this is the first time Midori spoke. Next day, Yukari pouts as she holds Midori. She says it is not fair because Midori's first word should be mama or papa. Uzeda says sorry and Midori smiles. In the next scene, Yuki is sneaking around daycare room trying to get her ball. She blushes, convincing herself she is not here to peek at Ryu. Despite her efforts, she ends up peeking inside. Takuma spots her and she quickly hides just before Ryu looks outside. Inamada appears and asks why she is behind the bushes. She says she's not spying on Ryu, she was here for the ball but it is gone and Cat plays with it. Inamada says stop making excuse. She blushes and says if you are embarrassed to play with kids by yourself, I will accompany you. But as she gets no response, she starts leaving. Yuki stops her, blurting out, I have a hard time with small children. Just as kids open the window to see what is happening, Inamada takes charge and informs Ryu that Yuki needs assistance adjusting to small children. She then holds her hand and ushers Yuki into the daycare room while Takuma tries to climb on window and Ryu stops him. In the way, Inamada tells her the importance of getting used to children for her future and she blushes. In the room, Yuki looks at kids who stare back at her. Kirin asks for her name and she introduces herself. Kids all start introducing themselves at once, overwhelming her. Ryu says kids seem comfortable with you, leaving her flustered. Kirin jumps onto her chest saying it feels just like mommy's, making Yuki blush. Other kids ask to touch as well. Ryu and Inamada quickly restrain them. Uzeda suggests a walk to redirect the kids' energy and they excitedly run towards the door. For the walk, each teenager pairs up with a kid. Kirin tells Inamada hold my hand tightly and do not let go. Uzeda holds Taka's hand who says I do not want you. Ryu asks twins to come with him and they agree. Kotaro looks at Ryu who tells Yuki hold Kotaro's hand since he is communist. She asks for his hand and he holds her hand. Yuki and Kotaro walk hand in hand. She is touched thinking he is really cute. She recalls in the past kids tried to spit on her or lift her skirt but feels relieved to be around kids like Kotaro. She notices Kotaro feeling rejected as he is not with Ryu. She thinks he is crying and takes out her hanky to wipe it, but it is just a runny nose and she freaks out. So Taka comes and starts wiping nose with her skirt and Ryu stops him. Kirin runs up to Yuki asking her hold out her hand. She gives her some bugs which stuns Yuki to the point where she faints thinking she will never get along with kids like Ryu and Inamada. She regains consciousness in the nurse's office and Ryu appears asking if she is awake. She sits up and blushes as she asks did you carry me here? He tells her Yusuke carried her here. He then asks her if she is fine now but she feels upset and tells Ryu I am sorry, I am bad at getting along with little kids. He assures her being with kids is really tough. Even he does not like snot and gross stuff. Nobody does, he is just used to it. Even as a boy, he is disgusted by bugs. He explains kids do not hold back when they play, but when you get used to them, you will feel happy around them. Just then Yusuke opens the window and tells kids want to apologize. Kirin remorsefully asks flowers are not scary like bugs, right? Yuki takes the flowers and thanks them. All the kids smile as they see her smiling. She then asks Ryu where Inamada is and he tells she just left and had told me to apologize you for forcing you into this. Upon hearing this, she runs to catch Inamada, who is upset thinking she messes up everything she tries. Just then Yuki hugs her from behind and thanks her for everything, causing Inamada to blush and feel affectionate. In the next scene, Ryu's friend calls and invites him to a movie. He denies because he has to take care of Kotaro. Seikawa appears and says, I will take care of him. You can go. While leaving, Ryu thanks Seikawa for looking after his baby brother and tells Kotaro to be a good boy while I am out, and he nods. Seikawa assures Ryu that he will protect Kotaro with his life. He then holds Kotaro's hand to wave goodbye to him. After Ryu leaves, Kotaro feels sad without him. So Seikawa asks him, should I bring some snacks for you, but he shakes his head. His snack strategy fails to restore Kotaro's mood, so he thinks to make an offer of play. He picks a cattail-like plant from flower pot and waves it in front of Kotaro, who immediately lights up. As he starts waving it continuously, Kotaro blushes with excitement. He holds up the plant and he immediately catches it. Meanwhile, Ryu meets up with his friends. Hayato also appears with a bite mark on his face. Ryu asks Ryu with a girl. Hayato explains his brother bit him, so he hit him for that. Now scary zombies approaches a girl who cries out and starts running. Ryu watches this scary scene with his friends, who are extremely terrified except Ryu and Hayato. At mansion, Seikawa draws Ryu on a ball and throws it. Kotaro runs to fetch the ball, but when he tries to catch it, he accidentally pushes it away and he begins chasing it around the mansion. Kotaro turns the corner and Seikawa tells him do not go too far. He ends up in a room which has a large open window. Wind blows curtain around as pages of a book flip around on the table. Seikawa picks up the ball and gives it to Kotaro. He tells him this is a library which belongs to chairwoman's late son and his wife. He recalls a moment when chairwoman's son says to him, come here, Seikawa. I will read a joke collection for you. Just once before I die, I want to see you laughing head off. He also recalls the time when chairwoman told him stop cleaning the library. No one is using it anymore. But later he saw her airing it out for the sake of two who will never return. He picks up the book on the table as Kotaro calls to him. He holds out a book and Seikawa takes it, asking, you want me to read it, and he nods. While chairwoman steps out of the car and heads to the mansion, she spots her son and his wife in the library and gasps, but soon realizes it is Seikawa reading a book to Kotaro. In the evening, Ryu waves goodbye to his friends and runs home. At the same time, Seikawa and Kotaro are at the door waiting for Ryu's arrival. As the door opens, Kotaro gets up and runs toward his brother and hugs him. Seikawa explains that Kotaro seemed impatient to see you, so we decided to wait here for you, and Kotaro is still clinging to his brother. Ryu thanks him for looking after Kotaro. From his pocket, he takes out a zombie keychain as a souvenir for Seikawa. Kotaro calls it zombie. Ryu thinks Seikawa might not like it, but he happily accepts it. He tells Ryu because of the two of them, he had a wonderful day. Just then, chairwoman appears and instructs Seikawa to start preparing dinner, and as he leaves, she tells Ryu to assist him. Later, Ryu asks Seikawa what games he played with Kotaro. He waves cattail and tells we played standard games like this, while Kotaro shows his ball to Ryu. Now December begins and city completely shifted to Christmas mode. Kotaro is obsessed with Santa Claus everywhere. He keeps stopping in the street every time he sees a Santa. A man dressed as Santa nervously looks back at Kotaro's stare. He even mistakes Santa for a man walking his dog. Ryu drops from exhaustion as he arrives at the daycare. He tells Uzeda everything and Uzeda says that is why you ended up getting late here. Kotaro stares at a gambling flyer. Uzeda says you are too young for that. Ryu points out he thinks he is staring at the Santa on it. Taka approaches and tells I met a super cool Santa at the toy section. Just then Uzeda teases him Santa only comes to good boys. You are a bad boy. Taka tears up and says I am a good boy. Uzeda says but you never eat your broccoli. He replies but I do not like broccoli, and Uzeda says that is why Santa will not come to you. So he says I will eat broccoli. But before they can respond, Hayato hits Uzeda, accusing him of making his brother cry on purpose. Taka then asks his brother, will Santa come to our house? Hayato was about to tell the truth, real Santa will not exist, but Ryu stops him saying do not shatter his dream. Kotaro approaches Taka and pulls his sweater as he turns around and he pats him, calling him a good boy. Taka asks will Santa come, and Kotaro nods. On December 18th, Kirin appears and says I told Santa my wish, but it is a secret. Her dad admires her cuteness and asks Ryu if he has noticed, warning him not to fall for her. Next day, Uzeda yawns while kids are playing. Just then he spots Inamada and Yuki. December 20th, twins tells we asked Santa keep us together forever. Kyusuke cries for Ryu's help with a Christmas gift for his twins. On December 21st, Yukari is holding cute Midori and tells I made a Santa outfit for Midori's dad. Ryu imagines him in a Santa costume, saying he will look perfect, and Midori smiles. Later, while changing into gym outfits, Ryu contemplates dressing as Santa. Seeing his big belly, Uzeda asks what Ryu is trying to do. Ryu gets flustered and tells him he is trying to look like Santa. Uzeda thought he was pretending to be pregnant. Yuki peeks to see Ryu. Kawata says do not peek while boys are changing. Boys ask you want to play Santa for your brother. Hayato interrupts and says is not becoming, Santa is your dad's job. His friend hits him saying you idiot, he does not have parents, and he apologizes. Ryu tells them he wants to be Santa for Kotaro. He is really excited about Santa. One boy wails how good of a big brother can you be? Another gets emotional. They suggest Ryu buy a Santa suit online, but his smartphone is not working. They recommend asking chairwoman for a new one, but Ryu wants to buy her a gift for taking them in. Hayato overhears and decides to skip gym and visits chairwoman's office. On Christmas Eve, both excitedly look at a beautiful Christmas tree. Seikawa presents an extravagant feast for them. Kotaro gets ready to eat. Ryu says it is too much for two of us. Seikawa tells chairwoman is at work so she cannot be here. This makes Kotaro sad. Seikawa has some work too so he cannot be here as well, making Kotaro sadder. He wishes them Merry Christmas and leaves. Kotaro grabs onto Ryu's sleeve because they are all alone. Ryu comforts him, telling him that his brother is still here. They can enjoy the food until Santa will be here soon. Upon hearing this, Kotaro gets excited. He then recalls the Santa dress his friends managed for him. He tells Kotaro, I need to go to the bathroom. But as he walks, his baby brother starts following him. He turned around and surprised to see Kotaro behind him. He takes the Santa costume and reaches outside the bathroom to wear it. But as he sits inside, he saw Kotaro already entered with him, and it became difficult for Ryu to transform into Santa. Just then, doorbell rings and Kotaro's eyes sparkle as he says Santa is here. Santa is here. As the door opens, they see everyone is there wishing them Merry Christmas. Ryu blushes while Kotaro's eyes light up. Chairwoman approaches Ryu and taps his head with a present, saying that she dislikes children who fail to mature. She hands the gift to him and he takes it, and everyone looks happy. Kids, parents, and Ryu's friends, but the happiest is Kotaro. It is revealed that Hayato told Chairwoman about Ryu's broken phone. That is why he gets a new phone as a present from Chairwoman. Everyone counts down from 5 as they get ready to take a memorable picture together. They all wish Merry Christmas as the picture is taken. With this, our story ends with a happy note.